Hi, this is Devin Dombrowski, and in this video, I want to give you a brief introduction to the brand new analytics section that has just been released into Wormed. So this new analytics section is broken down into some simple categories. The first is patients, which is who are your patients that have been admitted. Origin is where are your patients coming from. Circumstances of admission is why your patients have been admitted, and disposition is namely what happened to them at the end of their care. In the analytics section, by default, we'll be seeing analytics for the patients that have been admitted in the past 7 days. But of course, we can change this. So if we wanted to see analytics for any of these previous date periods, we can do that. We could say this month. Or if we wanted, we could change the calendar to some custom date frame to show our analytics in. We also have the ability to compare analytics to previous time periods. So we have a convenient drop-down where we can say previous period, which would, in this case, because we're seeing the last month, the previous period would be the month previous to that. Or we can say previous year, which would be the same month but in the previous year. And for any of our analytics where it is presenting something based on time, we can change this to show us data by any of these groups here. So for example, if we were looking at data over multiple years, we may want to aggregate the data into smaller chunks to make trends more visually obvious. Also, all of the analytics are showing us data for all of our patients that were admitted, of course excluding voided patients. If we wanted to see a special group of our patients, for example, if we only wanted analytics on our birds, or perhaps analytics of only animals that came from a certain town near us, or analytics for animals that were only caught by a cat, well, we can do that. Where it says all patients here, we can click this and change that to see what kind of segment of our patients we want to see. So if I wanted to see only birds, I would say for the taxonomic class, Aves. And that'll recalculate all of my analytics and now show me data for only my Aves. Additionally, if I wanted to see analytics for multiple segments of my patients, I can do that as well. So if I wanted to see for Aves, and then perhaps compare that with mammals, that's not a problem. But for this overview, let's just keep things simple and keep it to all patients and just show for this month. So under the patients category on our overview page, we just have some very simple graphs that show us how many patients have been admitted over this time period, how many patients were in care, in this case per day, the number of patients for each taxonomic class, and the most prevalent species during that time period, as well as some other basic information about our animals that we've had admitted. Under patients, we can see our patients broken down by various different categories. For example, under the taxa categories overview, we can see what the most prevalent species were by common name or by taxonomic class. And under each of these categories, we can see the details to see how many patients were admitted per day, as well as a data table underneath giving us how many patients were admitted, the number of species, their dispositions, and their survival rates. There's also a number of analytics on demographic and health indicators. And just like before, for any of these, we can see the details of them to see, in this case, for the patient's sex, how many of each sex came in during each day, and a data table with their numbers as well. Under Origin, we can see where our patients are coming from, the most common cities and state, and a data table for all those cities. And of course, the details for those as well. And there's also now a location or map view that we can see of all of our animals and where they've been admitted from. And we can zoom in to see exactly where they've been located. And you can see that geographic areas with clusters of patients will be grouped together to make it more visually easy to see what's going on. But if we zoom in, we can get better detail of that. Circumstances of admission also has an overview that'll show us what the most frequent circumstances of admission are, as well as the root circumstance, and a familiar data table with each circumstance and the number of patients, species, disposition, and survival rate of each of those. We can see all the circumstances of admission and how many individuals each circumstance made up. Select circumstances is a great way to compare circumstances of admission against multiple segments of your patients. For example, let's say we want to see the number of cat interaction, in this case for all patients. But if we added another segment, let's just say birds, we can see just for cat interaction how many animals were caught by cat for all of our patients compared to just birds, as well as in a pie chart. Of course, if I add another segment, we can compare that to mammals as well. And if we wanted to see this for other circumstances, we could do that as well. And these are great charts if you wanted to do a presentation to your board members or any kind of report on your data. We can also see over time all of our circumstances of admission, as well as a survival rate of each circumstance of admission. And lastly, under disposition, an overview of all the animals that have had a disposition in the time period we've requested. We can also get more specific details on the number of animals released during our time period, as well as the animals transferred, and the survival rate of all of our patients during this time period. And of course, a location map to show where our patients have actually been released or transferred. And lastly, for all of our charts, we can make any of them full screen if we're doing some kind of online presentation or tutorial. We can print the charts, download them into various image formats, or download the raw data behind each chart and use any way we would want. So that's a very brief overview of the analytics section. The number one thing to keep note about these analytics is they only work as well as your data that is input. So if you want more powerful analytics, you need to make sure to put in more accurate and timely data. Another thing to be aware of with the analytics is it's very easy to jump to conclusions with the analytics. In other words, it's best to look at the analytics with a specific question in mind and use the data so that it can help you answer your questions instead of just looking at the data and letting it lead you down a rabbit hole. So that's a brief overview of the new analytics section. Thanks for watching.